What's up, MAGFest? How are you doing today? Whoop. There goes my camera again. Let me fix that. All right. You might have to deal with me and a few technical difficulties here today because just a number of things that are just working, small number of things that are working against me a little bit, but I will work through them. So hello, everybody. Welcome, third time's the charm, not quite, but hopefully, to RadioSEGA Continued Excellence in VGM Broadcasting and Community and Video Game Preservation. And yes, that was the most pretentious title I could think of when filling out the form. I am your master of ceremony, CD-ROM 1019, and yes, of course, baby,
you were born this way.
And baby, I was born this way. Oh, you're killing me! I'm becoming predictable. All right, I think I need to speak a little more clear into the microphone. There we go. I gotta figure out this the best way possible. Cool. All right, joining me for another round this year, folks. We have in the center console. Is it speed, is it meth, is it cocaine, or is it just sugar? And we'll never know, but she's the speed queen. It's Rexy. Give it up for Rexy, everyone. And on the right box over here is the head administrator of RadioSEGA as we know it today. Give it up for Green Viper 8.
Hello, everybody.
All right. Disaster calls for more disaster. It's hot, I'm sweating, and I have a headache, so why the hell not, right? All right. All right, let's get this party started. Viper, do you want to kick us off with a little bit of there goes the camera again. You want to give us a kickoff of some of the backstory of how RadioSEGA came to be, where we got our start?
Yeah, sure. So, for those of you who don't know us, and those of you who do, it's always worth a little introduction again. So, we are RadioSEGA. We began life in 2006 as a station called My Sega Radio. It was an attachment to creator Sega Mark's personal Sega blog, featuring all sorts of things such as Outrun 2006 high scores. We're really showing the age there. And eventually evolved very quickly from what was a tiny, small radio station for like 5 friends into the behemoth we have here nearly 20 years later. So we've been going since March specifically of 2006. At the time, only a couple hundred tracks maybe. And here we are now at 30,000 tracks in our playlist. Live shows on a lot of days, to be honest with you, and plenty of great staff members here, such as CD-ROM, Rexy, and many of the other great collaborators we've had in previous years here at MAGFest as well. So we mainly focus on musical preservation on our 24/7 stream, which you can listen to at all times. That is available, hence the name. But we also do a live variety of live shows that you can listen to and get involved. We're on Discord, radiose.ga/Discord. If you'd like to come and join us and chat during said shows, and you're listening to one here, we're currently live out on the internet as well. So hello to everyone, both in person and at home. Fingers crossed. I've done my job. You've done your job. I think we're good. But yeah, anything worth saying as well about how you guys came to be? I'll talk a little bit about how I came to join the station, but also worth talking about our own histories with the site and the like, I imagine. Yeah,
keep going by all means.
Okay, sure. So, as mentioned by CD-ROM, I am the head administrator of RadioSEGA. That's a role I took up beginning 2018. And previously, we've had many great people take on the role, such as Casey, who you might have seen on a previous panel that we've done here. We've also had many great collaborators, though, such as the show hosts that make RadioSEGA what it is. And I've done my fair share of that as well. Since 2016, that's when I initially became a member of staff. But for the most part, nowadays, one show a week. Otherwise, I tend to look after the back end side of things quite a bit more boring from this perspective, but hopefully I've got some interesting insight that I can provide in different areas like CD-ROM and Rexy here, for example. How about you guys?
Go ahead if you want to comment on that, Rexy.
No, do I really have anything to like comment on it? Viper's like already like knocking things out of the park, and it wasn't even here last year.
Yeah, I completely forgot to mention that. I'm finally back here. Hopefully missed. hopefully doing my job again correctly this year, but unfortunately I had to make an absence last year, so it's great to be back here on the stage, even if virtually.
So I'm going to try one thing really quickly and just switch this over to extended desktop because I got you on clone right now, and I'd like to pull up the show notes so that I'm making this seem a little well put together, a little more well put together than it currently is not. So if you can just give me one quick second here to do that, and if it will not permit me to do that, then we'll continue as such.
We'll pretend nothing happened, and the show will go on.
Well, okay. Wait a minute. Well, it does not see the second desktop, so that's awesome. That's exactly... That is the best thing, really. Oh, hold on. I found it.
Here we go. Good news.
Okay, let me put that over here. That is... Yep, okay, apply that. And let me move you guys right over. Yeah. And I will...
Oh, and we got mobile phone CD-ROM back on our end.
Yeah, man, I gotcha.
No, it's all good.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
That makes a lot more sense. Okay. Except that I just remembered that the show doc was in the Discord, and now I have to bring you back over here again.
So what we do with this, Rexy, would you care to explain how you got to be involved with Radio Sega?
Okay, well, I can indeed bring up some things right here. Over here at Radio Sega, we indeed have a huge variety of live shows, but many of these would end up going through an audition process to see whether they end up fitting. We're going as far back as 2012, where there were like a small but very qualitative amount of shows going through many different formats. You've got your variety shows, you've got your RPG specialist shows, and other things that are focusing on specific genres. I think there was something to do with Shenmue thrown in there somewhere, but I can't really remember. I mean, I was like, ooh, this place needs a remix show, because at the same time, I had been somewhat involved with the KNGI network, just more like a regular listener to their shows, and it was originally hosted on RadioSEGA Radio, which had a rotating stock of different VGM tunes, not only official, but also on the remix side as well. Radio Sega had none of that. I was like, I think I can end up bringing what they're doing well to over there as well, and seeing if we can end up bringing this into a positive direction. So then, about some kind of week in November, I set up OBS. No, not OBS. This old software called Sam Broadcaster.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a very ancient thing. We're talking Windows 7 software here now. Used that to record an hour-long show demo. Sent it to the head of the station at the time, which was Gabby, who still is hosting Saturday Night Sega. He didn't listen to the demo. He instead decided to see if I could end up doing a one-off special during late December and seeing if I could be able to handle the pressure. No one heard that initial Sega Mixer Drive pilot for years. So
not even the person who was meant to listen to it, might I add. This is the level of professionalism we're dealing with here at Radio Sega.
Yeah, yes. But nevertheless, the idea of Sega Apocalypse was to just assemble a 2-hour show based on stuff that would end up bringing more like a doomsday party, because December 21, 2012, the Mayan end of the world, etc. We all got past that. So either way, the show ended up going extremely well, and Gabby decided to give me the gig simply based on that. And as of this coming February, I would have been on here for... I would have already done 12 full years on this station.
Insane.
So that is just mind-blowing now that I absolutely think about it. So we've got that right there. So yes, the idea for Sega Mixer Drive is that I wanted to end up wiring the RS community into the wider remix scene. OC Remix is definitely a very obvious one and a very big go-to, even all the way back then. And I still take pride in being able to showcase what that's able to do. Though there were also other places I also wanted to reach out to, like the Dwelling of Duels, the Game Chops label, Game Grooves, the Pixel Mixers, so many different places that I felt like I could just reach out to and see if I can showcase them then. And of course, the YouTube scene over the years ended up flourishing so much it wasn't so much like someone would just take a random MIDI rib and just put it to a stale picture on YouTube anymore. People were now suddenly doing full-blown music videos accompanied by their work. And even then, I still had to make sure to just blank out the video so I can take a listen to the arrangement and see whether I feel it would be absolutely amazing to end up fitting onto the set for that week. So it's like, when you eventually end up with so much competing for those like 2 or 3 spots for the remix highlights, it really gets difficult to pick what you really want to show. So it's just one of those things. It's just so lively. And to end up rounding it out, I just bring in chaos based on whatever musical themes that would just end up getting around. So it's just something that the format has chopped and changed over the 12 years, but I still have a lot of fun being able to work with this and just locking everything in like that. And we also led to other different shows as well, which ended up bringing in events like Winterfest, which is our every December marathon of events, marathon of shows thing that would end up happening, when everyone would end up chiming in with different slots, and not only would you do your own, but you'd also guest in others, which is also fun. We've also had this thing called the Summer Shake-Up, where people get to host each other's shows. And I've heard a couple of other people end up taking on the SMD mantle through that, and I would end up in turn taking up a couple of other mantles. So that has been really good to see different styles going on. Sega Sunrise, that was like our breakfast show format that happened in a few select set of weeks. So to be able to end up following along to a breakfast show format and bringing in my own little bits of scripting and the like to just really lampoon on the format was something that I thought was just absolutely amazing to do, even if it did mean getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning for some of those. I'm like, woo.
Too much for me.
I mean, it would feel too much, but it is an absolute blast being able to do things like this. Going back to 2012, though, I was initially asked by Casey, who was at the time a regular interviewer over at RadioSEGA, that he was wondering if I would end up being able to do a show, and I didn't feel very confident with being able to do anything like that. But let me tell you, I'm living testament. Anyone can be able to host a radio show as long as you have the software for it and the drive. So, I mean, it's literally in the title, Sega makes a drive, what can you say? But but yes, if you have an idea just floating in your head, don't be afraid to go in, record a demo, and send it to where you feel is best. So, take it from me, this is what makes Radio Sega so amazing to be around.
Great stuff, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always a pleasure to have you around, and what you've achieved through the station, I think, is still pretty incredible. And of course, great thing is I can attest, of course, it's through your own talent as well, but it's led you to a lot of off-station opportunities that perhaps you wouldn't have considered. I know, even in my own case, I certainly think that, like, the confidence and skills it builds to host a show, which, of course, I came in, same as Rexy, through the ranks. Everyone comes in through the ranks, right? And to have not only the responsibility of hosting a show, but also the weekly drive to do it, the inspiration, the ideas, that transfers a lot of skills over to other things as well. So it's always been great to have Rexy a part of it, of course, and seeing Rexy go on to do great things outside of the radio station is also incredible to see. So everyone does their part, but everyone also gets to live their own lives as well, basically. I think that's the key here.
Yes, living lives. Living lives. It is still important to do self-care. I will have to absolutely advocate that too.
Oh yeah, I'll
Yes.
attest to that too, because if you're not taking care of yourself while you're doing stuff like that, it very quickly just becomes another obligation, and it should be fun. We do it for fun, but we do also do it because we love it. I probably have my own few stories about that, but yeah, continue if you got more points to make.
I don't have any more points to make.
Definitely. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there, I'd say. Like, it's it's definitely, we all do this out of love, but you've also got to make sure you don't just do it out of obligation after a certain point. But I don't know how it is for everyone else, but there's always, at least I know from certain hosts and myself, that there's also a drive to entertain, but a lot of it is also entertaining yourself in the process. For as fun as it is to make other people smile and do all these other things through shows, it's also, you've got to enjoy it first. Like that, people will know when you're enjoying it, when you're creative and feeling like at your best. And if you're just feeling bad that week or whatever, or you're down in the dumps for a couple months, then the mood reflects, right? So you've got to not necessarily raise your spirits in aid of, but it'll bring you up alongside that, and just gotta take care of yourself first. But it's always nice because, well, same with any other interactive medium like streaming, you can get you get close to people and you can broadcast yourself out to the world when you feel like you don't have another voice and anything like that. So there's a lot of aspects to that I've always like incorporated into my own stuff personally in Radio Sega, and I think that's important. Anyone looking on the outside in as well, it is an extension of yourself, as ridiculous as that feels. Like we often attribute stuff like that to like films and like pieces of art or whatever. It's like, well, you're putting a piece of yourself into this. You're just talking at length. Case in point, I'm aware. For hours. So you've got to enjoy yourself in the process, right? And everyone else will enjoy themselves if you're enjoying yourself, I guess.
Right on.
I'll have to say that. Yeah, I'll have to say that right there. If you've got a topic that you're passionate about and you just enjoy speaking with it, everything just melts. It's just a glorious feeling.
Yeah, when it all comes together, it's a great, very satisfying feeling on our end as well. You're always more critical of your own work, definitely, but when you feel like it's gone well, then you're like, oh, I've smashed this out of the park, and hopefully everyone else feels the same as well. So it's always a rewarding part, I'd say, of doing what we do on Radio Sega when that goes well. So, yeah.
So I realize that we're kind of all over the place here. We're kind of like just getting into it, and part of that's because we had a little technical difficulty getting started here. But now that we're well underway, we want to refocus on kind of like the theme of what we decided to discuss this year.
Yes.
All right. So with some of the basics out of the way about just who we are, and I assure you, by the way, that what you see here today is not the full scope of our team at Radio Sega. We have a wide array of other internal show hosts that we work with, as well as a full media team and a news team who are great at what they do, some playlist managers who help keeping our music tagged and easily accessible the way that it is. And our podcasting team, we work with Resident SD, who's the head proprietor of Terra Player, which if you haven't experienced for yourself, I highly recommend you do so. It's an amazing piece of code that he's cooked up for himself that integrates very, very nicely with Radio Sega, as well as a couple of other radio stations that you can find at your local internet provider. But we this year are celebrating 15 years of excellence when it comes to live show content. And that's what we wanted to dedicate our focus to today. And thank you, by the way, Rexy. You saying 12 years prompted me to look at the clock, and I just realized that it's been 10 years for myself. So it's like, oh, it's going to be 10 years for me this year, and I didn't realize it. So, oh boy. Fun.
Moves on.
All right, so who wants to go first?
So I guess I'll go first since I'm aware I've got a lot to say on this one, given I've prepared the history of it and stuff like that. This is when my document decides it wants to crash, so give me one moment here as I attempt to get it up. But the gist of what we want to talk about today is, as mentioned, we've got the 15th anniversary of Radio Sega Live coming up here. You've already heard me list the date of the actual station. That's 2006, so we're approaching that next year, 20 years, which is insane to think about already. But 15 years of live shows, that took a couple of years after the introduction of Radio Sega to get live broadcasts on the station. Rexy's mentioned other websites like the KNGI Network, and a couple others who are still going have had longer histories than us when it comes to producing live content. But in particular here at Radio Sega, it's been 15 years this year, and well, the three of us have been along for the majority of the ride. Me less so than the other two of you, actually, but in particular, Radio Sega Live first began in March 2010, although we have the likes of Resident SD and Gavi to thank for that, both of who, as CD-ROM has also mentioned, and Rexy as well, are still with the station. So lots of the people who helped make it great are still here, even though stuff moves on and everyone gets on with their own thing. The initial tests began all the way back in January 2010, which took 2 months at least to get on the air, which is quite insane. But there's a lot of back end, I will say, that goes into this. I'm responsible basically for mediating between the rest of the team and the web developers, and there's so much that went on behind the scenes to make that initial run of live shows happen, as well as everything that came after. So yeah, there was a lot that went into getting live shows on the air, but once we did so, we've had these 15 years. I don't have the stats on how many shows we've had collectively, but it's, I think, including specials and one-off shows, it's got to have been within the 100s now, right? We've had a lot over the years. There's a lot of turnover, both with, I'd say, staff come and go, as we've mentioned, but also a lot of us come up with new ideas, and we go, I'm going to do something else from what I did before, and you start a whole new trail of thought, and you do a show for 5+ years, and you go, oh well, there goes 5 years of my life. So yeah, that's pretty much the history of it for the most part. We've got, I'm sorry, I'm still trying to open this document. My entire setup crashed, such as the theme of tonight's entire broadcast. So I've been winging that entire time. Hopefully it loads now. There we go. Yeah, so the first 2 shows we aired were Saturday Night Sega and Sega Ages, as mentioned. We had more following in the 2010s, eventually ending just with those 2 at the end of 2010. Thousands of episodes aired since then, and, well, a quick stat, most active years for live shows, I did go back and tot up the totals, 2016, and perhaps the least surprising of all, 2020. Both of those we had at least 1, if not 2 shows every day, which is a little nuts compared to right now. Everyone's on their Christmas breaks. We've got 4 or 5 shows active, but the likes of Rexy up there, that doesn't work on CD-ROM screen, I don't think, but Rexy up there coming back soon. CD-ROM always comes back for some specials here and there. So lots of people pop in and out. So it's always worth, as I've already plugged the Discord link, but that's a great place to find out when we're doing shows. But generally, if you tune in on a weeknight, you get the 24/7. If you tune in on a weekend, then you get Radio Sega Live, which is all sorts of shows. So one of the big things we wanted to get into as well is the history of the what would you call it, the event side of things as well, because that's like the big bread and butter of what we do on Radio Sega. Because a lot of the week in, week outs of how shows are hosted, you'd have to ask like specific show hosts how we prepare our shows and stuff like that, and we've all got at least a little bit prepared on that, I believe, or at least couldn't come up with it off the top of our heads. But what we can talk about is the events that we've all been a part of, like big broadcasts we've done and stuff like that. We got plenty of examples of that. For now, I think I'm going to throw it over to CD-ROM if you've got your stuff ready finally, if the technical side of things have ironed themselves out the tiniest bit.
Yeah, sure.
Tell me about how you got involved.
Yeah, so myself, my history has kind of taken a lot of twists and turns, or proverbial bumps in the road, if you will. Back around circa 2010, I made a second attempt to get myself involved with Sega Sonic Radio, which was an offshoot radio station of the Sonic Stadium at the time. And I was really, that 19-year-old autistic kid that really loved Sonic and really wanted to talk music about it. I thought, here comes a teenager with big shot that thinks he's got a really cool concept, and I tried to just market myself as this really cool talk show, and it very much was not, but it kind of was what it was. I spent a couple years at Sega Sonic Radio, and 1 year, SSR experienced a station shutdown as a general attempt to kind of like rebrand, and this was around 2013. But there were kind of plans to bring that back at some point, and it did, but it didn't really kind of come back in the same way that we all expected. It didn't come back with the same drive and passion that we really experienced it to. And then, not to entirely mention that I had gotten myself into a little bit of hot water with some of the administration around that side. I don't feel particularly comfortable explaining it because I'm not proud of how I'm not entirely proud of how I conducted myself in those days.
Well, let's just put it this way. What happens at Sonic Stadium stays at Sonic Stadium.
Absolutely it does. I did not take any of that mess with me to Radio Sega, thankfully. And I didn't take it with me to Radio Nintendo either, which was kind of my next stop after that whole debacle. And I spent some time there with a new show concept I called Sanity Within Chaos. At the time, I was really big into this show called Sanity Not Included. And I always had this kind of like persona of this guy that just doesn't have his stuff well put together. So I kind of just wanted to kind of make a show out of that kind of persona, just something that's always just off the cuff, just trying to figure it out as you're going. And then that experienced its own debacle with a change in management. And we, the Radio Nintendo team in which I was a part of, we came together and collectively decided we wanted to walk away. It was just time. So we did. I spent a little while just doing absolutely nothing, but living my life until I tried to reach out to KC at the time, circa 2014, about Winterfest. But I got to him too late that year. The schedule had already been full, so I said, hey, maybe next year, keep me in your thoughts. And then I promptly forgot about it until planning for 2015 started to roll around. And he contacted me, and I very quickly whipped up a new concept with my best friend at the time. It was, and that's how we started Chaos Control Center, which the concept went well. We got ourselves a 10-week probationary segment for that show. So me and BDX rocked that out. And then we decided we loved it too much and we wanted to stick around. So we cooked up a second season and we nailed that out. I'll take a brief moment to say that I'm dedicating kind of this my presence here to him. He tragically passed away at the end of last year, and I miss him very deeply. I owe a little bit of my success at the station as it stands to him, so I thank him for all that he did for me, and just kind of like with being willing to take that ride with me. In kind of like in defiance of all the times I had to put up with him for constantly derailing the show and flirting with Rexy when I constantly asked him not to. So that was a thing. But I took some time to be a little silent. We decided that we wanted to branch Chaos Control Center off into its own thing on Twitch at some point, and we started that off. Haven't really entirely figured that part out up until this point. We're something that I'm going to keep working on, but at one point during one of our Winterfest specials, I very, very off the cuff announced, like, nobody had seen it coming. I was the only one that knew, and I just wanted it to be kind of a surprise that way. I announced that I was going to revive an old show concept I had for Sega Sonic Radio that I was trying to do, and I got maybe 2 episodes in before the station had shut down, so I revived my Strictly Sonic show concept, which I ran for 101 episodes. So that is a show concept that came with an expiration date. That was a show where I said I'm going to take a week at a time to cover one Sonic-related OST at a time, and I did. And now that I'm 101 episodes in, I've covered basically every Sonic game known to man. I think I covered both of them at this Winterfest, right? I did. What did I do? I did Dream Team. You did? Yeah, I did Dream Team.
Yeah, Dream Team and Shadow Generations.
Right.
You did this Winterfest.
Shadow Generations, right, yes. So the show is currently up to date, and it's basically up to me whether or not I wish to continue pumping out new episodes as new Sonic games get released. I probably will. So just stick around for more of that. And that's kind of where we are now. All these shows, by the way, as far back as wherever they are, as long as we're properly archiving them, are available to download and to listen to in all their glory and or cringe at RadioSEGA.net, our media archive, and a lot of them can also be found at TerraPlayer. So if you think that's a cool concept, or if you think the concept of any of the shows we're talking about might be interesting to you, please feel free to visit that website and find one of those podcasts for yourself. I think they're all on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher too, aren't they?
Stitcher died like 2 years ago, but it was.
Okay, well, they should all
Right
be
in
on
the
Apple
heart.
Podcasts.
Yeah, definitely Apple. Spotify is a bit hit and miss. That's not really our problem. That's theirs.
Great.
Pretty much everything.
Well,
As you say. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, as it stands now, I don't know what I constantly kick ideas around like rocks in my head, and just every once in a while I might surprise Viper and the rest of the staff with some sort of unique show announcement that he won't see coming, because I prefer it to be that way.
Every time.
We do have something that we will announce later on in the show. If you're interested in hearing what it is, then stick around for it, and I'll let Viper be the one to deliver that news. But that's a little bit about me and the stuff that I enjoy doing. Otherwise, I take it upon myself, and am very privileged to spend the time with lovely folks like you, being the Western brand ambassador to Radio Sega. Self-proclaimed, that's not my official title, but I will take it if Viper will let me have it. So,
I mean, it's going spare, so.
All right.
Who else is going to take it otherwise?
You're right, correct. So I'll pass that over to you.
Sure. I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on what you said in regards to the podcast as well. You are indeed correct. There's a lot of stuff. RadioSEGA.net, if you hit the media tab, pretty much everything right from the beginning is there. There's very few exceptions to what we don't have. So you hear talking about the first live broadcast. That's there. You can download that. That's on iTunes and everything else. You can hear all the way from the beginning of the, as you say, the cringe, if you will, in some cases, when we're all getting used to it. All our first episodes and everything like that are pretty much all there, all the way to the present day, all 15 years. It's something we're really hot on, really proud of, is that we want to make all of this. We believe that the music we're playing should be, easy to find, easily accessible. And likewise, because we're such fans of it, we want to also make our own ramblings about this stuff easily accessible in the future, making sure that the listeners can still access it if they want to go back to it. Like, I know in the case of a lot of stuff I like separate podcasts and like YouTube videos and streams and stuff, I'm definitely a bit of a data hoarder when it comes to wanting to keep hearing that stuff. So it's a big deal to us. If we put something on the air, we want it to be available as well. So you can find it in most good places. Otherwise, it's always on the website, basically, within reason. There's a couple of exceptions, or if there was that bad a tech issue or something, but there's a huge archive of shows. If you've never heard anything, or you want to listen to something for the first time, you're hearing, I want to hear this Strictly Sonic show. Well, it's all there. I don't think we missed a single episode from what I know, so you got plenty of examples to go back
it should
on.
all be there. I tried to be really good about archiving all that.
Yeah, you were great, and both me and SD edited that for the most part. We're on top of it, so there's loads of stuff like that to go back on. Sega Mixer Drive, on the other hand, slightly less of an updated archive, but
yeah, it's slightly less, unfortunately.
This year might be the year, Rexy. We might force you to upload those podcasts.
Yes, I'm hoping to run a break in that somehow.
Let's not break the streak here. But no, that's just what I wanted to mention, really, aside from that. Yeah, we keep mentioning stuff like Winterfest and events. That's probably something worth getting onto relatively soon, because I can't speak for you guys, but that's always my favorite time to, as a show host. As an admin, it's absolute hell on earth, and I wouldn't wish the work upon anyone else. It gets divvied out every now and then, but as a host, it's always a very special time to places like Winterfest and things to host shows, and hopefully you guys can chip in and give you memories of all these things and your favorite experiences. So I've got a list here of all the important important events we've done on Radio Sega over the years that are worth bringing up, because we've got plenty more to come in the future as well. So, over the years, we've hosted many on-air events where shows come together. Rexy mentioned often in a marathon back-to-back kind of format in the case of things like Winterfest, but that's not always what we do, but I guess that's kind of, in the wider VGM scene, a bit more what we're known for. Usually in celebration of something or another. Winterfest keeps getting brought up. We will get to that, but it's winter. There you go. That's the main theme, that we come together for something and try to give some good vibes out to the people and all that. So, the very first event, probably worth talking about, is back in 2010. So we barely even got started, and we get involved in the Project 24 for Sega Sonic Radio, which isn't really for any cause as much as it is, from what I remember. I mean, CD-ROM was there at the time. You might be able to correct me. Mostly just promoting SSR. And the way they did that in 2010 was by inviting RadioSEGA, a competing rival station, to host on their station. So in 2010, we get involved for the first year in Project 24. Originally, it was just a RadioSEGA hour. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say. To be fair, I mean, yeah, we were kind of like a competing radio with two different concepts. But when you're planning something like that, that's entirely necessary because the core concept of Project 24 was 24 straight hours of content, like only dead air or breaks for swapping the station over to the next host. So I'll go over kind of like my contribution to that in a little bit. But yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, pretty much aside from that, RadioSEGA Hour was our first contribution with a couple of Resident SD, Gavi, like we've already mentioned, and I believe also an admin of the time, Forever Sonic, was also there. So an all-star cast in the case of that very first edition. It expanded from there during the later years. Hosts got their own segments during it and things like that. That would last until 2013. That was the final edition of Project 24. And conveniently, that 2010 edition is also the first time RadioSEGA, as far as I know, crossed paths with CD-ROM up here. So, as far as I recall, that's the first time we're like together in a schedule or anything like that, right? Like, I'm sure you encountered the site and things like that, and vice versa. But that's the first time, at least schedule-wise, that we can go, hey, we're side by side.
Geez, yeah, it's been too many years, so I'm struggling to remember.
And this is something I can't speak too much on. I was never part of Project 24. I mentioned I joined in 2016, so I'm an onlooker to a lot of this early part of the history, but both of you guys have been involved in various ways. So what was that like to host both? Well, CD-ROM more so from the other side, but Rexy, you also got involved, if I recall, from the RadioSEGA side, did you not?
Well,
the first year, was right?
Well, yeah. So we're talking the 2013 edition of Project 24. And with it being like the first time I'd end up being involved with the marathon, of course I would be nervous about the perception that people would have on the show, and then B, if I would end up getting enough interest with the prize giveaway, which of course ended up going so well, it ended up returning in various formats, so even throughout Winterfest as well. So the whole premise of being able to go in a wintry themed playlist to just mark the Christmas season had just been, absolutely fun to end up doing for Project 24. And I'm glad I got to end up doing that again for Winterfest when we ended up taking it that way. So let me put it this way. If you're nervous about streaming in any kind of capacity, whether it be audio or visual, even something completely different, maybe like, I don't know, what even virtual reality streaming happen in the future? But I'm sure that would have already been by now. If you're nervous about getting a voice out there, just try not to. Take deep breaths, get a nice cup of water or whatever you feel like drinking at the time.
Coffee in your case.
Coffee. Yes, well, yes, you got that right there. You got that. I do like my coffee, not gonna lie. But
I knew it.
do everything you can to keep your nerves together, and then you're gonna ace it.
100%, yeah. So, CD-ROM as well. Have you got any good experiences from that time of Project 24?
Do I? Yeah, I have only mostly good experiences from Project 24. Thankfully, So I remember I vaguely recall the first time I did Project 24, and I just tried to do some sort of generic special just to have something. But I think what really stood out for Project 24 was the year later. It was 2011. It was hot off the heels of the release of Sonic Generations, the first one. And I had no bigger way than to do some really cool content than to invite one Mr. Roger Craig Smith to a personal one-on-one interview. So that was my first time working with Roger in that capacity. And we got to reconnect actually 10 years later with Mike Pollock on board for a Winterfest edition after the release of Sonic Frontiers, which was just so freaking awesome. 2013, the year you're talking about when we would have kind of worked together on the same Project 24, I think that's when I did I'm pretty sure that's when I did Talk It Up Actor and Animator, which I had. That was the first radio debut of Black Devil X alongside Mike Pollock and myself.
Oh,
So,
I remember the interview, actually. I thought that was a Winterfest thing, not Project 24, but I definitely remember contributing questions to both.
yeah, no, so that I definitely seem to remember being Project 24. We're getting the 5 minutes left card, but I'm a little confused because the schedule says 9:30. Are we good? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm like, panic! I'm like, all right. So, anyway, yeah, that I recall being that definitely wasn't Radio Sega at the time. I wasn't involved with the station yet. So that might have been. Oh no! You know what it was? What it was is that I had just signed on to Radio Nintendo that year. And I was getting involved with Project 24 as an external community member. That's what it was. And I had just kind of like revived Talk It Up because that I wanted to keep separate to SSR. That was kind of like a whole special thing I did. But the funny thing I remember about that year actually is I remember T-Bird was maybe about an hour, 30 minutes to an hour into his special. And I'm just kind of listening along, and his mic goes dead, and then his stream kind of like cuts out in the middle of it. And then of all the people, I'm 2 years removed from SSR at this stage. Of all the people, he pings me, and he goes, "Here, I'm having a problem. You take the station." I'm like, is that allowed? Can I do that? So I'm like, okay, I'll entertain everybody while you try to fix your junk. That's fine. And then I tried to like hold the station down for another 20 minutes. He couldn't fix it. So I'm like, all right, I'll rename this and I'll just take on a second set. That's fine with me if everyone will have me. So I did that, and that was a lot of fun. Those are the things I remember from Project 24. A lot of good experiences.
I do remember that there was a show for Project 24 2013 that did not go to plan, and there had to be a replacement. I should have actually realized that was you. Yeah.
Did you expect him on the other end, the one being replaced, or were you of the assumption that he was replacing? Which way does his memory go?
That wasn't a question.
No.
For me,
I
right?
have nothing to say. You answer the
Fair
question.
enough.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on to the next big Radio Sega event. This is on the station this time. Segathon airs on Radio Sega on November 12th, 2011. Gavi's big goal was, what if Project 24, but with one person? So we've already mentioned how mad that is. Yeah,
I don't think
it's a little nuts.
I don't think I heard this story. You got to tell me.
So this time, this is for charity. So there is a method to this madness. The first edition raises money for children in need. It goes okay, all things considered. He stays awake. There's a lot of long music played. That's the Segathon tradition. The Streets of Rage DJ mix, which is a half an hour mix from what I know, appears a lot during these broadcasts. But that's the very first one. It does last all 24 hours and raises money for the UK charity Children in Need. Still continues to this day. The most recent one being Segathon 4, actually, which aired this last May. And that raised money for Special Effect, who's a charity you might be a little more familiar to the audience over there in the States. And always does great work. Gavi smashes it out the park, even when you think he's going to collapse in a puddle like halfway through the stream. So Segathon's always a great time, and it's great to raise money and do quite a bit of charity stuff as a result every now and then. Because of that, I don't think, had Gavi not laid that groundwork, then perhaps we'd not be doing stuff like that to this day. So it's great that he started it, and a tradition of him suffering for the sake of pounds and dollars is long since standing. So after that, we get into July 2012, and that saw the first Radio Sega Olympic Relay. Imagine Project 24, but this time we're not as insane. It's it's a 4-hour broadcast. It's a bit more manageable, right? So 4 hours, 4 hosts, each one has an hour slot, and the goal is to pass the baton without dropping the stream and do your own slot about the 2012 Olympics. The idea does actually come back in the form of a 3-day weekend this time in 2016. That's the last time we saw this.
I remember that the Sega Mega Drive show that here ended up going ridiculously long because of continued answers towards the QOTW.
What?
But
Sega Mega Drive long? That doesn't sound right.
I know what you mean, overrun. Yes, we do end up... It does normally overrun, but try 45 minutes.
Okay, that even for your standards, that's huge. Rexy's definitely the queen of the overrun on Radio Sega, often going 35 minutes, an hour, etc. over the very rarely an hour, but it happens here and there, definitely. Rexy's known for this more than any of us, so
if we're behind schedule, it's probably her fault.
Yes. So, a 5-minute count held up again, and we're not looking towards the end of this doc. Even though I'm speaking the most, I'll still call on Rexy here.
At least I curb a lot of this during Winterfest, I'll put it this way.
Oh, yes, we'll get on to Winterfest momentarily. We are actually nearly there, and you're the sole proprietor, I think, every year of the schedule going slightly out of whack. At least you're now on the tail end as opposed to right at the beginning, causing it immediately to go out of whack for the rest of the weekend or whatever have you. So yeah, nowadays we're getting into stuff we can all speak a little bit more about, thankfully. I'm nearly involved at this point, and both CD-ROM and Rexy are pretty much here by this point. And it's the big one. We've alluded to it many, many a time because we all love it. Winterfest.
Woo!
We're here, 2014, the big one. It's our longest running event to date. We've now held 11 of them, celebrating 10 years this last year in 2024. Originally, I'm reading this with a with a shred of regret. There were 3 days. Each day was 8 hours of mostly Sega content, sourced from both Sega podcasts and Radio Sega hosts. That then rapidly changed over the years, making it a bit more of a nightmare to put together, to 4 days and 12 plus hours each day. That's what our most recent Winterfest averaged, which, bit of a behemoth to listen to, but got all of it on catch up, so you can listen to as much or as little as you want. We're pumping out some great Sega shows during that time. Personally, I got involved first during the 2016 one, the same time I was also on my 10 show probation period. We're all on it at a certain point. We've got to do it. But yeah, how about you guys? How did you first become involved in Winterfest? Rexy in particular, by the way, I should point out, I'm sure this will come up, holds the record for the only person to do a show during every single event. The only one. Very impressive.
I mean, it is absolutely an honor to end up getting involved every single year for Winterfest. The only problem is I cannot necessarily remember the specifics of 2014. I was under the assumption of if you're in-house and you've got a show, you can chime in for a slot. And I was like, yay, I'll do it. So it's just exactly how that is. So it's like every year I've made sure to end up doing a 2-hour slot showcasing winter music, giving away Steam coupons, and also giving away other prizes whenever seem fit depending on the year. Like I remember last year in particular, not 2024 but 2023, I even went as far as giving away the Sonic cookbook. Yes, that was a thing, and that brought in a whole load of different memes in the chat. That was amazing. But sometimes it doesn't necessarily get easy. Life can try to get in the way, and I did have 1 or 2 difficult years in particular, but that was something that would end up being kept under my skin until after the broadcast was done. So it takes a lot of professionalism to try and get that out of the way. The biggest Christmas miracle, and I'm literally saying that right there, is that none of us really fell sick during Winterfest. In fact, we're most likely set to feel the honk shoe me's after the fact, not in the run-up to it. So, be what it be. It's an experience that is meant to be enjoyed the most live, and being able to be around an absolutely bustling community at its absolute busiest every single year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and to speak to that, I'll just kind of like briefly put out a very special thank you to all the people that continue to come and actually fill the radio slots to listen to us when we do Winterfest every year. Just continue to prove that radio is not dead as long as people keep coming to listen. So we greatly appreciate them coming to keep that community alive and keep that event going, because we've got no purpose in doing it if nobody comes to kind of sit and listen. So we thank them for allowing us to continue to entertain them.
Yeah, it's a great honor to be able to do it, and there's so many people who chip in, even like an hour or two or anything like that. I mentioned the first year was just Sega podcasts and shows, but we're all over the place now. Like, it's a celebration of gaming radio, full stop. We get anyone and everyone in, whether they've hosted recently, they've done anything in the past or anything like that. We do all sorts during Winterfest. We get to get together and really get into the festive spirit. That's it for me. I'm sort of at that point in life where I'm a bit disillusioned with Christmas as a personal holiday for me. So that's my big like holiday thing. That's what makes me feel like I'm a part of a family, a group of friends, etc. Is being able to sit there for 4 days, drinking a lot of caffeine while trying to host a show semi-competently. I jest, but I see a different side of it to these guys, and no, it's all a great deal of fun, and it comes together great every year, being able to hear all you guys put together something truly special over the course of those weekends.
I
we'll
look
come
forward
back
to it just as much. I love doing it too. It's always kind of like a privilege to just kind of like come up with some new concept each year, even if I don't really find one. Like a few years ago, like I talked about just bringing Roger Craig Smith and Mike Pollock together, and nobody knew, by the way. So that was the best part. I kept that completely under wraps that entire time. I just gave one hint to everybody. I said, "This is the name of the show." And you guys ignored the hint entirely and just tried to troll me about the show's name instead. And everyone was completely blown away. I actually need to ask you, Viper. Did having like Roger Craig Smith show up in the Discord like immediately set off any alarm bells to you? Because like I remember just seeing you immediately go, "Oh, all right, everyone, make sure they're on their best behavior."
I have a couple moments as an admin where I'm like, oh, this is exciting, but should we all buckle down? Like, see, there's the part of me that's like, oh my god, we've got a real somebody in here or whatever for an interview like that or anything like that. And most people be like, oh my goodness, I can't wait to talk to them. I'm like, can we make sure people behave, please? Can you guys like wipe your shoes on the mat on the way in and all that sort of stuff if you're coming to talk to Roger or anyone else, please? Like, I managed to suck the fun out. I don't, but it's always a great privilege. But there's the moderation part of me that goes, uh-oh.
I know we got more to.
It's a great privilege.
Yeah, I know we got more to get to, so I'll briefly touch on my experience with Winterfest. So 2014 I missed. I didn't get to. That was the first one, and I just got to the administration deck a little too late that year. But joined with a vengeance in 2015 with BDX by my side, and I tried to make it a point to kind of be consistent there, but I couldn't. 1 year I had to cancel out because of some computer issues that were just giving me fits. I think I might have missed another year to another computer problem or staffing issue or scheduling issue. But otherwise, I'm always happy to kind of get involved with that. I've either spent a lot of my time for Winterfest doing some sort of new concept or some sort of like really stupid live concept or something that just kind of gets people together and hype. Otherwise, I will put out a new episode of my off-season podcast. And that's kind of been my experience with that. I always look forward to it every year. And what am I going to do this year? I don't know yet. You'll have to tune in to find out. But you got 11 months to figure that out. So
you also got 11 months to release a Sonic game critically. So
yeah,
there's still time.
Yeah, that's very true. All right, what's next?
Okay, then. So we get on to the smaller fries now. Now that we're out of the big one. We've got some smaller events we've done over the years as well, which have been a great deal of fun to be a part of. So the next one I can really think that came along is, I say the small fries, this is one people might not remember, the initial Mega Drive Mini Marathon. Now, Sega announced this weird mini box because Nintendo did it, so Sega got to do it. Called the Mega Drive Mini, Genesis Mini. Sorry, I'm meant to play to the crowd here. I can't help it. Okay, it's in my blood. The T's in my blood. Okay, but they, for some reason, initially announced this with Games. There wasn't much excitement because the emulation quality was going to be awful, and it was clear it was just a quick cash grab. But then they got some real serious heads into the marketing team, and the Mega Drive Mini was something we were all really excited for. And critically, as huge Sega nerds, I think I can say that the first time Sega had released a new bit of hardware in years. So you've got to mark that in some sort of way, right? And how we did that was the Mega Drive Mini Marathon. So every week there'd be a couple of shows. This was a really unorthodox way of doing it. There'd be a couple of shows per week that would be dedicated to the game list of the Mega Drive Mini or our memories of the initial Mega Drive / I've got to stop saying this. It's Genesis, okay? I've always believed it was Genesis. Get off my case, okay? But right, now that we got people back on side, so we did something related to that every week. A couple of shows, like one or two, and that was over the course of a month. And it was a pretty successful marathon all in all. I definitely plan it differently if I were to do my time on that again, and I'll give you a tiny spoiler. I did get to do that again, but that's on Sega, not me. And this actually culminated in one of my favorite moments to be a part of Radio Sega, and we actually ended up finishing off the marathon pretty much with getting an early look at the Mega Drive Mini as a result of all of this. So I can say Mega Drive Mini in this one instance because the four of us, me, Gavi, Skyblaze, and staffer at the time, RadioSEGA, were all shipped off to Sega Europe HQ to get an early demo of the Mega Drive Mini and play it on stream. It's a really fun VOD. I still look back at it and laugh. That's available on Sega Europe's YouTube channel if you want to go and find that. But that was the ultimate culmination of that event. And it was definitely a unique one, as I say, from the planning perspective. I've never done one like it since, but I'm glad I did it all the same because the end results were magnificent. And it was a pretty good console as well. I mean, mine sat on the shelf somewhere behind me there, but I mainly remember from the marathon perspective one we did later. So I'll hold on to that. I believe both of you guys were part of that in some form. CD-ROM, you did your memories of the Genesis, right? Something like that, I seem to recall.
Oh, now I know what you're talking about. Yeah, so whose project was that? The short little video project. There was a part one. It was 3 parts, but I only got contacted for the first part. I recorded a bunch of things, and a lot of them ended up not getting used. But just memories about the Genesis, the Mega Drive. Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, I think we did like a couple similar things like that. I think the videos you're talking about are also ex-staff member Dr. Scottnick's, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, there was Scottnick. Okay, yes, yeah. I remember that. Yep.
We did that. I think either he did that off the heels of what we did or vice versa. I don't quite remember which way around that was, but I think you also did a show, like a full show about your memories of that as well at some point. And I don't know did you do a show for that, Rexy, or did you definitely mixed the Last Call, which is our hour-long DJ set we do every now and then. You definitely did that, didn't you?
I did, yes. I did that for the Mini too, because I literally remember, I mean, we're kind of getting off peak with this one, but I believe doing that mix literally on the year of my brother's wedding. So that had to be something like that. That's how I remember it. But the first Genesis Mini Marathon, I did end up chiming in with the Sega Mixer Drive theme restriction, as in I can only allow games that were part of the Sega Genesis Mini, and that gave me an excuse to actually dedicate a block of third-party remixes among my normal ones. So I had an excuse to end up putting in some Castlevania Bloodlines somewhere. That was definitely hype. I believe I also fit in some Street Fighter, and I'm just trying to remember what games were involved with this one. Earthworm Jim was definitely a big one for sure. Yeah. I was just like trying to not mixing up too much with whatever was on the Mini 2. Yeah,
that's the biggest part of trying to remember it for me. But
exactly, yes,
the tiny bit, I guess, with that one. But
yeah, so I still was able to just like tie it with the theme, the new music releases, the themed blocks that I had. Obviously, there was the dedication towards the third party, as I mentioned, but it just all linked in.
Very well, for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been saying it. I've been foreshadowing quite a lot. I'd say if I did my time differently with this, I would do it again. Some of you might know where this is going. For some reason, Sega decided, you know what we need? A Genesis Mini 2. Not the Saturn, not the Dreamcast. We need a second Genesis Mini. Now, as a fan, there's a lot of cool games on this, and there was a lot of things ported to the Mega Drive for the first time as a result of this console, so that was great, but part of what that meant is new Sega hardware. Let's get some more stuff done. And as a result, I went back to the Winterfest format with this one, and this is the one that's a bit more widely remembered as a result. So the Mega Drive Mini Marathon 2. I had a great time with this one. I don't know how everyone else feels about it if they remember being part of it, but that was a great weekend back in 2022, I think that console came out. I'm trying to remember the specifics, but I think for the most part, great weekend. Not too much to say on it, but otherwise, all the episodes are available once again if we feel like mentioning Terra Player and others one more time. But otherwise, the next ones are where we're going to be at. So we've got 10 Years Live now. Remember that name. So a big part of Winterfest for us personally is the guest shows. And that's, people who don't host a show on Radio Sega normally, whether it be they host on another station or they host a podcast or anything like that. Because of that, the homegrown Radio Sega shows sometimes get a little buried under the dust. Not all of them. Some of us pull out some big cards, and everyone loves all the shows anyway. But we wanted to give them the spotlight, the full spotlight this time. And the 10th anniversary of Radio Sega Live, so 5 years before now, was the perfect time to do so. And 10 Years Live is what resulted. Past and present show hosts were brought back. In particular, we've mentioned Resident SD a couple of times now. That was his first appearance on the station for about 7 or 8 years, so that was a great privilege, and he's back in the furniture now, whether he likes it or not. So, among others, we brought back.
Wasn't that the year? Wasn't that the year that I released the unheard episodes of TSSS?
Was that the next year? I think that might have been the next year, actually.
Oh, okay. Never mind me.
I think, yeah, sorry. I think that was the next year, but what did you do for, I think you brought BDX on for 10 Years Live, I'm pretty sure. That was the first one you did on Radio Sega for a while.
Oh, I might have.
That was after you'd cancelled it on Radio Sega, I think. Or after you'd moved it from Radio Sega, sorry. I think you did one more for the 10th anniversary thing.
Yeah, we might have.
Sure.
We probably did something like that just as a special for 10 Years Live. I think I might have twisted his arm about it.
But always great to have you a part of all these things, as we know. And Rexy, as you can guess, to the Sega Mixer Drive, I did my usual shows. It was a very standard event. That was kind of the key of it. Low key in what we do, high key in celebrating what we do, if that makes sense.
Yes, low-key as in I didn't think I had a particular theme, but I did end up asking people how they discovered Radio Sega during that event. So it was like being able to show that just as part of your overall anniversary proceedings. And normally, when I end up hosting something for the Radio Sega anniversary, I'll just try to end up going towards a special that links towards the station as a whole, or the years that ended up, bringing Radio Sega in, whether it be like focusing on the website or the stream, the live shows. So there's like two complete separate things going on with that. But this was definitely one that was a little bit low key on my particular side, but in the wider circle of things, something that just shows a lot more of what it's all about.
Yeah, I think shining the spotlight is definitely what we wanted to do here, and I hope it's something we can do again going forward, because it's always great to be able to discuss what we do, like our craft here, but also just to actually do it and just be all together and do it and show our passion for it, like directly, rather than, that was the theme, was to show off what we do and how far we've got. So it's always nice to be able to put that on a big stage by doing rather than saying, almost, or explaining here. So
I share all those warm and fuzzies with you for certain. In the interest of time, I'm going to move this along just a little bit quicker and talk about something. So we've celebrated the stuff we've worked really hard on and the stuff that we really enjoy doing. So let's take a brief moment to celebrate the really stupid, shall we?
Perfect. Yes. And we've alluded to that before as well, haven't we? But oh boy. So during 2020, as everyone else did, we all went a little bit insane. And 10 Years Live, we just mentioned, happened the weekend, at least here in the UK. All of that insanity of 2020 kicked off. And by the time we'd hit June, we all decided, what if we hosted each other's shows? And on paper, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, that's plausible. What you don't factor in is how much planning, how much dedication, how much time people have put into perfecting their craft. What happens when you just send a document over to someone and go, here, have fun?
That was such a bad idea on so many levels in retrospect.
But what you got was Opposite Week, was what we called it the first year, and on paper, nothing about that should have worked. And yet, the chaos that came from it and the unprofessionality and everything, and seeing the cracks of Radio Sega Live form is why it's a fan favorite. As someone behind the scenes, you can see me internally screaming, like, have you sent the documents yet? Have you sent this music? But on the front, all you can see is pure chaos, and that's why everyone loves it. So I got to swallow my pride a little bit on this one, because we planned it to be like this, and yet everything never goes right. And that's the beauty of it sometimes. You've got to wing it, and you've got to take it as it comes. And sometimes what comes from that is just unfiltered and messy, and that's the bits that people like to see, you know?
Yeah, I mean, to our credit, I'll say this much: we freaking did it. We got it done. We did.
Yeah. 2 years. We
did do it. Like you saddled me. You saddled me with Ravsdom, which I had never heard in my entire life. So I had to sit down and do one episode of that by myself with no idea where I was going. I was all too happy to take part in that, and I remember this particularly because that week that was coming up that you decided to do Opposite Week, I was scheduled to do Sonic Jam for Strictly
yes.
Sonic Show, which I had been dreading doing because I just didn't want to drag up all the OSTs for all the games I already did and then cover the Game.com version of the game on top of that. And I have to tell you, I remember laughing hysterically watching our Discord chat in motion as you were covering the Game.com tracks. The GIFs in chat were appropriately sarcastic. It was like the funniest thing I had seen all day.
That's one of my favorite shows that I've done, because you're like, oh, Sonic Jam, the Saturn soundtrack, you know, for the Sonic World stuff's great. Like, and then, okay, how many of you, raise your hands in chat, how many people have heard the Sonic Jam OST? Both here and just, you know, virtual hands, because, like, it's, I'm sure you're familiar, but even if you think you remember it, you've got to listen to it again, because they cooked. They overcooked it, but they cooked.
It's the Game.com version, which is a meme and a half in itself.
One of the soundtracks of all time, I think we got to say here, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Meanwhile, on my side, I swapped positions with Resident SD. He took Sega Mixer Drive. I took Layton Live. We both ended up handling things pretty professionally with our separate themes. So that was really great. The one problem I had, though, was that I went through my entire Layton Live slot with a developing sunburn. So that'd be fun.
Well, it's light, so at least there's no sun to make the sunburn worse.
No, not actually. Not at all, no.
We've got it. So
what a time.
So we got about 7 minutes left in the panel. Do we want to discuss what we've got cooking in the oven?
Sure, and unlike the Game.com Sonic Jam soundtrack, we're going to hopefully leave it in for the allotted time and not leave it in there too long. Fingers crossed. But one of the events we talked about, and one of the reasons we've been so big about talking on events today, is because that's like a big part of the DNA of what makes Radio Sega Live what it is. People look forward to like these big occasions as much as they look forward to the week in, week out. One of the ones we did focus on was 10 Years Live. We mentioned that was for the 10th anniversary of Radio Sega Live. And, well, did you come up with an original idea for the 15th anniversary, or did you just rehash and make it slightly better? So I think we can announce here first that we're doing it again. And it's going to be a great time, all being well. You can join us on... I don't actually have the date here. That would have been a really smart idea for me to prepare ahead of time.
Yeah,
there we go.
For that. I don't have it either, but I think you said March, right?
March 14th, there we go.
All right.
We'll have maybe some preamble from the 12th onwards, but March 14th, 15th, and 16th, get locked into RadioSEGA.net. We'll have a news post coming when we have a bit more of a schedule, because right now it's still in the works, but another weekend of big moves coming. So a lot of programs, a lot of hosts new and old, and we're going to celebrate what we do the best way we can.
All right. That is an official
join us for
announcement,
that.
folks. March 14th, 15th, and 16th, join us as we celebrate 15 years live. I have just a little bit of a tease for you regarding that. I have nothing set in stone, but the wheels in my head are already turning for whatever concept I'm working up. I've been networking around with a bunch of people here, and I've networked with some, let's say, flamboyant individuals that I am going to attempt to make some sort of concept with for this year. For celebrations. So if you want to see what I have planned in all of its glory or not, make sure you tune in there. If you guys have any idea what you want to cook up for this year, you can tease too. Otherwise, we can open the panel for questions.
Sure. I think for the most part, I'm just going to do a pretty standard show. I'm going to try and throw it to, greatest moments of you guys as well. Maybe chuck a prize giveaway in there if I can, because I like to give away merchandise for my show instead of, putting it up on the internet or whatever. I like to make it feel a little bit special. It sounds very self-indulgent, actually, I realize with the words coming out my mouth. But I like to give back some Radio Sega bits to the people, so
Awesome.
I'll hopefully get some of that done. Stuff where you can't get elsewhere, and up to Rexy above me. I got to stop doing that, because in the room that doesn't work.
All right.
Yeah,
So I will take this moment to briefly thank everyone that's here at the panel, and also thank all of our listeners, and then especially thank all of the staff members that make the station turn the way it does. We love working with each other, and we're thankful for everybody in their role and what they do. I will now open the panel for any questions that I may be able to answer about Radio Sega, and if no hands raise, I will find something else to discuss for the next 4 minutes, or I will just stare at you awkwardly. Go for it.
Hey, I go by Sonic. I used to listen to Radio Sega way back in 12.
Oh, right on. Mm-hmm.
I haven't in a while, but I'm beginning to do it again. Are there any specific specials or shows that you suggest as a way to get back into it?
Are there any specials or shows I suggest as a way to get back into listening to Radio Sega? I would point to any number of some of the archived Winterfest episodes that we have for each of our individual shows. To be self-indulgent, I'll point to my interview with Mike Pollock and Roger Craig Smith. It was the Chaos Control Center Christmas Hero versus Harm special. Not ham, Viper. There was no ham involved in that show. What do you guys suggest?
Evil ham?
Not even evil ham.
Yeah,
a lot of the Sega Mixer Drive Winterfest specials all ended up facing that similar format, but do check out the 2023 edition, because like I mentioned, I gave away the Sonic Cookbook, and that just brought in a good amount of discussion based on the Amazon previews. So that had just been really hyped to be around. You get an idea as to what the prize giveaways were like, and how the format was just initially established from Project 24 back in 2013 going forward. So there you go.
And I'd probably also chuck to my Winterfest 2023 episode. I cooked up the idea for about a year. I do a weekly segment on my show called Code Breakers, which is anagrams of Sega songs. For some reason, I decided to turn that into a 2-hour show, considering it's about a 5-minute segment. And you had to guess the person who was the anagram. So I came up with phrases and songs that tied you to them. And you watch people slowly go mad when it aired live, trying to figure out who it was. And it's one of those things where hopefully when you listen to it, you don't get it, and then the reveal kicks you across the face as you realize I've made it about someone who was relevant 20 years ago. So that's the one I'd go back to. That's one of my favorites to have put together. It was a lot of careful puzzle planning to bring all the pieces together in a way that made it a satisfying conclusion.
That sounds like an idea only you would come up with. All right, time for one more question. Anybody? Any hands anywhere? I will take that as a satisfied audience panel. Well, thank you Thank you for everyone joining us and allowing us to talk your ear off about what we do and why we love doing it. Please remember to rate us positively on your guidebook app, I think, or wherever you go rate panels for MAGFest. And mayhaps we shall return next year as we celebrate 20 years of broadcasting excellence. Right? This is year 19 for us?
Yeah, you bang on the money.
All right, you know what? Here, I'm going to turn this on its head. I have a question for you. When are you two going to spend some money and come down here and actually do this with me?
I think about it every year, and yeah, every year I never scrape together the funds.
All right, well, you got 365 days starting now.
Okay. Have you heard of this thing called the Switch 2 that many people are saving for?
Don't play that game with me, man. Come on.
2026? 2027?
Oh, now you're pushing it. All right, well, we got to see. I have to go through the resubmission stage each time. So it was nice to get approved this time. Hope they declined my Kingdom Hearts panel, which I'm only mildly upset about. But all right, well, that's it. That's about it for us. I don't know what's coming in here next, but I think people might be lining up. Say your goodbyes, folks.
Hey, thanks for everything, and keep being you all the more. I will say, I just don't know what to end up signing this with. Viper, you got any better words?
Not really. I should have thought of this. This is a basic thing, but thank you everyone who's been here. Really appreciate it. If you're joining us in the room or virtually, thank you for listening to us natter on about our own history. Keep enjoying MAGFest, because video game music, as you can see, has got a very rich history here as well. So go and enjoy some of your favorites, find some new favorites, and keep celebrating gaming music, because that's what we do. That's what we want to pass on to you, and well, MAGFest does a much better job at it, so feel free to go and find some of your favorite video game music.
Alrighty, with all that said, I have no further more appropriate way to end the panel than my own, and that is to say thank you for joining us, and until next year when we return, hopefully, she's been Rexy, he's been Viper, and I have been CD-ROM 1019, saying to you good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, goodbye, wherever the hell you are on Earth, make it a freaking good one, and we will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye!